39 upgrade. So today I'm going to be installing the Savox waterproof IP67 micro server. This of course was donated to me by Coyote0976. Thanks a ton, man. Now what I have in there right now is a high-tech non-waterproof servo. It works, it's just this one's better, so we're going to go ahead and get this installed. The casing for the servo is blue, so I'm going to try to dye that black, but I'm not too sure how well that's going to turn out. Another thing I'm going to be installing is of course the Traxxas Bluetooth-enabled TQI transmitter and TQI receiver. The reason for this is I'm not going to be having the DX2S much longer. I'm going to be giving it back to the person who gave it to me. So it's time to go ahead and get a new transmitter for it. The good news about this is that the receiver is going to have two plugins for channel 1, which means I'll be able to do the dual servo in the near future. Also, I have the Bluetooth enabled chip that I can go ahead and get on here. So I'll be able to go ahead and eventually get telemetry. But enough of that said, let's go ahead and get this servo installed. So let's go ahead and open this thing up and check it out. Pull it open from the top. All right, and here we have the servo itself, which looks freaking awesome. I hope that wire's long enough. Hopefully. And then we have all of the stuff that comes with it. We have some servo horns as well as some mounting hardware. Either way, guys, I need to go ahead and find out if I can dye this black. So I'm just going to go ahead and use some RIT dye and hope for the best. Alright, so as you can see, I dyed it and it was for the most part successful. I wasn't able to get it all the way black, but I definitely got it darker than it was. For me to go ahead and finish it off, I'm going to go ahead and use some of this vinyl wrapping that I got from Freak Show a long time ago. So let's see how good I can make this thing look. Alright, and there you can see that I went ahead and I covered the top with carbon fiber vinyl, and I have to say it looks really good. The bottom part is still dark blue, but I really don't care because that's going to be tucked underneath the chassis, so all you're going to see is this. Now that this is taken care of, let's go ahead and get it installed. So the first thing I need to go ahead and do is remove the motor. In order to get to the motor, I'm going to have to go ahead and take off the gear cover. The gear cover is held on with a single screw. Once you get that screw removed, you can easily pop off the gear cover. And now it's time to remove the ESC. To remove the ESC, all I have to do is open this battery door and slide it out. I'm also going to go ahead and unplug it from the motor by undoing the banana plugs. And then I'm going to go ahead and undo this screw that mounts the motor mount to the motor mount plate. Once that screw is removed, I can go ahead and tilt the motor away from the receiver box and rotate it backwards. Now for me it's a little bit more difficult just because I have this chassis brace in the back. But with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and pull off the fan just to make things a little bit easier. Set the motor to the side, and now I need to open up the waterproof receiver box. It's held together with 4 screws. We have 2 for the wire tie down, and then 2 for the top of the receiver box. With those screws out of the way, I can just go ahead and pull off the wire tie down as well as the top of the waterproof receiver box. Remember, it has this little lip that goes into the chassis. You just got to tilt it forward, and then you can move it out of the way. Next up, I need to go ahead and unplug channel number 1, which is a servo, and then pull the wire out through the top. And then I can go ahead and disconnect the servo. It's held in with 2 screws, one on top, one on bottom. Once those screws are out of the way, I'm going to flip the RC upside down and I can go ahead and pull off the servo guard. Next up, I need to go ahead and undo the servo horn from the servo. It's held on with a single screw. With that screw out of the way, I can go ahead and pull off the servo horn, move that off to the side, and then I can finally pull out the servo itself. One quick little note, just remember, with this screw removed, this vent for the battery tray can easily fall out. All you have to do is slide it back in place if it does. So in order to install the new servo, I'm just going to slide the servo wire right through the chassis and slide it into position. I'm not going to hook up the servo horn yet because I need to center it. But for the time being, I need to go ahead and get the servo wire, feed it through the top of the receiver box. And now this is when I'm going to go ahead and replace the new receiver. Alright, now with the new receiver in there, I'm going to go ahead and get the servo and I'm going to plug it into either one of the channel 1s. And now I'm going to go ahead and seal all this up. Well, remember guys, that there's 2 for the wire tie down and then 2 for the top of the receiver box. So out of all the times I've ever worked on the Mini E-Revo, the easiest way to get all the wires into the waterproof receiver box is to put the wire tie down first. Make sure that all the wires are at the proper length, and then you're just going to stick the top into this lip and push it down. But when you're doing so, be careful not to pinch the antenna wire. Once that's taken care of, I can go ahead and reattach the motor. I'm just going to go ahead and slide this hole over that peg. Just like that. And then I'm going to get the ESC, slide that back into position, close the battery door. I'm going to snap on the motor heatsink, and then plug the motor back in. The motor plugged back in, I need to go ahead and get the proper spacing in between the pinion and spur gear, and I'm going to have to adjust the motor just right. Once I get the proper spacing, I want to go ahead and put in the screw that holds it in place. So when you're tightening down that screw, make sure that the spur and pinion gear are not so close together that the gears grind, but they're not so far apart that it will destroy the teeth. With that taken care of, I'm going to get the gear cover. I'm going to snap that on and then reattach the screw that holds it in position. With that all taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and plug a battery in. I'm going to turn the transmitter on, set the servo to 0 for the steering trim, of course. And then I'm going to turn on the ESC. This is going to go ahead and center the servo. With that centered, all I'm going to do is unplug the battery. I'm going to flip the RC over and I'm going to hook the servo horn to the servo. So lucky for me, the servo horn could easily fit onto this servo with no modification. The only thing I had to do was use the included screw that came with the servo. Now I'm going to get the servo guard, push that into position, hold it in place, flip the RC over, and then I'm going to attach the 2 screws that hold it in place. Here is before. And here is after. Guys, check that out. I love that carbon fiber vinyl wrap. I mean, it just made it look so much better. And yes, as you guys can see, the servo works really, really well. In fact, it's incredibly strong. Everything works perfectly fine on Jester. It's always nice. So thank you very much, Coyote, for this awesome upgrade. And that was Jester's level 39 upgrade.